a couple minutes after. We do not have a quorum as of yet. I know we're waiting for Mark to come on, and Roberta is absent, and we're still waiting for
Or Emily.
Emily. Thank you.
Phil, do you want Mark or me to run the meeting since Roberta's not here?
So let's take a look. Who's the vice chair as of now? Let's see. Oh, we don't have that at DRC, do we?
No.
Heather, looks like you're up.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Also, Emily just emailed and she's trying to log on right now or call in.
We just need Mark now.
Okay, Mark should be joining.
6-1. There we go. But if you just give me a little better. Okay, guys, shh, I'm in now.
Hello, Mark.
Hi there. Let me start my video here. I dialed in typed in the number, and it was asking me for a passcode. So then, yeah, now I clicked on the actual packet that was sent, and that seemed to help. So I made it in.
Okay, we got Emily on yet?
It looks like there's a phone number there that someone's called in on. Is that Emily or?
Emily said she's in the waiting room waiting to be let in.
Uh-oh. Mariah, if you could let her in.
I didn't know we had a waiting room.
Everybody
in the-
in.
Oh,
Can I ask who called in over the phone?
Hello?
Hi,
Emily.
Emily, is that you?
Emily Baranek. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yeah.
we can.
Yeah.
Emily, are you just calling in or are you going to sign into the Zoom meeting?
I was unable to sign into the Zoom meeting. I am calling in. I am on the road, but I'm technically pulled off the road. So I think I'm probably phone only at this point.
Okay.
So we can't see you, so if you need to speak or anything, just unmute yourself and then we'll kind of go from there. We have
So thank you.
we have a quorum now, so I'm going to call to order the Design Review Committee. Roll call, please.
Okay, can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
Okay, Committee Member Anderson,
here.
Committee Member Daris,
Here.
Committee Member Newsom,
Here.
Committee Member Baranek,
Here.
Chairperson Fonzie is in excused absence, so we have 4 present and 1 absent.
And I ask for approval of the agenda.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Committee Member Anderson,
Yes.
Committee Member Daris,
Yes.
Committee Member Newsom,
Yes.
Committee Member Baranek.
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
I'll now open DRC for public comment. Do we have anybody that's on the line or on the Zoom meeting wishing to speak at public comment for anything unrelated to the item on the agenda?
It does not appear that we have anybody wishing to speak on items not on the agenda.
Okay. If we have somebody show up, we can always open it back up. So I'll close public comment. And can I get an approval or go to consent calendar? Can I get an approval of draft minutes?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, Committee Member Anderson,
Yes.
Committee Member Daris,
Yes.
Committee Member Newsom,
Yes.
Committee Member Baranek, Committee Member Baranek, sounds like we may have lost her.
Do we have a quorum without Emily?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're good. Motion passes 3-0.
On to the only item on agenda, development project review. This is the second design review of a mixed-use building at 5802 Traffic Way. Want to go ahead with your presentation?
Yes, and Mariah is going to be presenting the details on that. As you mentioned, it is our second look at this project in the downtown commercial zone. It is a mixed-use project. Just to help narrow the focus down on this project for the Design Review Committee, what we're looking at is actually an allowed use in our downtown. And so our comments really are related to architecture and design. It's really important to keep that in mind as we look at things. They're not asking for height exceptions. They're not asking for coverage exceptions. They're not asking for setback exceptions. But if we change the building to push them into those exceptions, then it becomes a discretionary project. And that's kind of the fine line to dance around, that we don't want to be doing that. But again, in this case, I think Mariah is going to share with you how the applicant has responded to our comments that we received the last time from the neighborhood and from the DRC. And I'll also be available in addition to Mariah to help answer questions, and let's see how it goes.
All right, thank you, Phil. Just double checking, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, as Phil mentioned, this is a mixed-use development that you saw about a month ago at 5802 Traffic Way. The permit's PRE 20-0063. And taking a look at the zoning map, you can see the property is in the downtown commercial zoning district with high density multifamily to the north there in the brown, and medium density to the west there. I apologize, I'm getting notifications from the Zoom meeting. The property itself is just about 0.4 acres. As we can see from the aerial photo, it is just a vacant lot without very much vegetation on it. So as I'd mentioned before, the project was presented to the DRC on September 9th, 2020, and the Design Review Committee made comments about the building's exterior design and materials, the parking, the visibility for vehicles exiting the site, as well as the project's impacts on the surrounding residential properties. As a refresher, the project being proposed is a new 3-story mixed building with commercial space on the first floor. That's about 1,100 square feet, and 10 residential units between the second and third floors. That's just under 7,400 square feet. The space also includes a bike storage / utility space. That's about 1,000 square feet. And the applicant is requesting a density bonus of 1 unit for having 1 affordable unit in the project. So here we can take a look at the 2nd-story floor plan, which is also the site plan. So just a reminder that the parking lot is actually level with the 2nd story of the project. So to enter, you drive under the building on Traffic Way and then drive up a ramp to a parking lot in the back with 10 spaces. So as I mentioned before, the applicant did revise the plan to meet the Design Review Committee's comments. So some ways that this was done was to remove the cedar siding and instead add a brick veneer, which includes decorative recesses and banding, in addition to smooth stucco, which we'll see in just a second. And then there was also a large canopy that was over the front of the building. This was removed to create a more vertical orientation of the building with smaller awnings over the patios and recessed panels between the windows. Staff is recommending to increase the size of these awnings. You can see circled in red just on the front of the building to give the building a little bit more architectural interest. So making these a little wider and a little bit deeper to really make the front of the building more special. But you can see on the top there that there's that smooth stucco finish. You'll see those aluminum windows again, and then the brick veneer and brick banding on the bottom. And then you'll see where the cars drive in there under the building. And then at the very bottom, the applicant has added a concrete bulkhead, you can see along the very bottom of the building. So to address some more of the design review committee's comments, the applicant recessed and widened the commercial storefront and residential lobby, which creates a 7-foot deep area for outdoor seating, which was something that the design review committee mentioned that they would like to see. The applicant also improved visibility for cars exiting the site by pulling back a portion of the building. It's 6 linear feet of building. He pulled it back 3 feet off of traffic way to increase the site distance triangle, so it's easier to pull out of the parking lot. And the applicant also changed the color of the roof from white to gray to be a little bit less visible or a little bit softer to the neighbors up above the project. So this is looking at the first floor plan. You can see that the driveway has been widened a bit to, again, increase that site distance triangle for those pulling out onto traffic way. And then the applicant also recessed the commercial storefront, which you can see that larger area that can be used for outdoor dining or outdoor commercial use. The materials have not changed too much from the first time we saw this, aside from the cedar siding, and now we have that brick veneer. And then a paint color was added. That kind of medium gray is between buildings, which we'll see, or between the windows, which we'll see on the elevations in just a second. But we still have the metal trim as well as the accents and the bronze aluminum doors and windows throughout the site. So here is the elevation. This is looking from traffic way. This is what you would see at the front of the building. So you can see how it's changed from that cedar siding again to the brick veneer, the smooth stucco on top. Again, staff is recommending to make the front awnings a little bit more substantial, just to make the front of the building pop out a little bit more. That's the front rendering. Here's the front elevation again, which we saw earlier. This is actually looking to the south. So from the north side, from that high density multifamily project side, you can see that the brick extends about 1/3 of the way back on the building, and then the rest of the building is stucco. This is the rear side of the building. This is the west side. And then the south side, this is facing that the little commercial development on traffic way right now. You can see again that the brick extends about 1/3 of the way back on the building and the rest of it's stucco. To address the landscaping comments that came up in the last meeting, the applicant had originally proposed oak trees to kind of screen the project from neighbors, but after hearing that there was some concern about the trees screening the view to downtown, these were removed by the applicant entirely, and vegetation, which includes native shrubs and ground cover, was added along the northern and southern property lines and then along the top of the retaining wall at the back of the parking lot, which we can see here. This is their landscape plan, and then they are meeting the requirement to plant 2 new street trees along traffic way. So to discuss parking, there again is no parking requirement for commercial developments in the downtown commercial zoning district. The municipal code requires 1.5 parking spaces for 1-bedroom units and 1 guest space for every 5 units. So per our code, they would need 17 spaces. However, since the project is at least 10% affordable, the state specifically says that the applicant can request reduced parking ratios, which states that the city shall not exceed a required parking ratio greater than 1 on-site parking space for a 1-bedroom unit. So therefore, the applicant is proposing 10 units and 10 parking spaces. So they meet the state standard, which overrules our municipal code. I believe when the project came before the design review committee a few years ago, staff went out and counted the number of parking spaces around the site. So I just wanted to add those in here as a part of the discussion. So at the time, staff counted 25 on-street parking spaces along Traffic Way between El Camino Real and Lewis Avenue. And then 13 on-street parking spaces between Traffic Way and Entrada. And then 68 off-street parking spaces around within parking lots on Traffic Way. So that gives you a little bit of an idea of how much parking is within the immediate vicinity and just a short walk to the development. So here we're just looking at the site photos. Again, it's just a vacant lot, but there is some topography to it. So the applicant will be doing some grading, but there's not much there right now. So the design review committee discussion items are to discuss the revised architecture and design, as well as the materials that we've switched to, and then the revised landscape plan, taking out those trees and just adding some landscaping around the parking lot. Staff is available for questions.
Find my mute button. Is there any questions of the staff from councilman or from DRC members?
I do have a question if I could. And it's for Phil on the parking. And it's not the number of parking, although I am concerned about the number of parking. The two spaces that are up against the property line on the, let's see, I guess that'd be the west side of the lot. Is there required to be sort of a hammerhead backup turnaround? I see it being very difficult to get out. I know the 24 feet is minimum for the drive aisle, but when you're that close to the edge, do you need a hammerhead?
It's not mandated by our code, but it makes sense to have better turnaround space to get in and out, obviously, because it just makes it easier to function in these parking lots. So we do try to put those in where we can. In this scenario, you're dealing with a site that's incredibly constrained due to slope, due to size, and trying to fit something in here. I think I mentioned in our last hearing that this is the third or fourth time the project's been tried at all on this property. So the difficulty of fitting that in without losing spaces or doing some significant grading scenario is a challenge. So yeah, those last couple of spaces against the wall there, against that, I'll call it the west side of the project or the bottom of this particular image that you're looking at here, are going to be a challenge, especially with a larger vehicle. So they're going to have to probably hope that there's another vacant space they can back in to get out, or they're going to have to make a couple of different maneuvers. It's not impossible. It is going to be
So our municipal code, our municipal code doesn't have a parking lot standard that says that it's mandatory that you have certain clearances such as that?
It has a 24-foot backup space requirement, and that's what's been met here. It has a width requirement and it has a depth requirement, but it doesn't have those maneuvering requirements for those last spaces. Those are things that are completely, up to the applicant whether they want to fit that in, and sometimes we encourage it, but it's not mandated by the code. So, yeah,
I'm gonna have to ask you because I'm going through this on another project. I hate to always bring stuff like that up, but this thing I've been pressured to create a hammerhead, but I can't find a requirement by the code or the city code or anything. And so that's why with this thing here, I was just wondering how we handle it. And since you say there's nothing really in there, it's recommended but not required. You're gonna have to do a couple zigzags, not zigzags, but it'll seesaw to get out of there with 24 feet. If the city's okay with that, then I guess that's fine. I see it complicated. I mean, we're obviously constrained on the space.
Yeah, it's doable. I mean, for most people, it's doable to get out. It's not the best thing in the world. And in a perfect scenario, you would have a hammerhead that you could fit a car entirely into. To be honest with you, most of these projects do not incorporate those things. So if you drive around town and look at some of our higher density projects in multifamily, you probably won't see them. You do see them more commonly in commercial projects where you have a higher turnover volume of vehicles coming in and out, and you have a much higher liability issue. In a residential project, though, which these spaces are, your number of trips per unit are dramatically different than you are for a commercial space. So typically someone comes in, they go in and out 2 to 3 times a day, maybe at
Right.
most, but they're not coming in and out all day long like you are in a commercial project. So there is some leniency given that consideration. But again, the code doesn't mandate it, so we can't require it.
Okay.
Um,
So the other question I have is on the driveway, the main driveway ramp that comes from the street up to this parking area. What is the width of that? I guess at the entrance, at the mouth of this thing? And then what is the minimum, the lowest clearance? Because I guess it's going to start to ramp up before it comes out of there. So what's the lowest clearance? Because there's a lot of concerns about people being able to get moving trucks up there. You know, I kind of did a quick little search on the last meeting and felt that you could get a medium-sized U-Haul up there. It doesn't take a lot of driving experience to be able to do that. I personally would back it in there and then you can just pull out. But the clearance, I think, is important. If we don't have enough clearance, then maybe we should consider that and raise this up.
Yeah, we talked about that, but then we're pushing into height limitations at the top. Now, if I was moving in here, I wouldn't go in that driveway at all to move in. I would park out front and I would go right in that front door in that residential entry, and I would use that lift to haul my items up right onto the second and third decks.
Okay.
So I wouldn't be going to the back necessarily. If I was, I'd be using a truck. I'd be using an open bed truck, or I'd be using a small box truck, both of which would fit into that scenario. So I don't know. Is someone moving in and out a design feature on this thing that's worth changing the architecture over? I don't believe so. As staff, I don't see that to be the matter. That's a pretty rare scenario.
No, as long as there's options in that there's
think
comfortable options. And
Yeah, think about the other thing is we do more downtown mixed use, and we're going to see a lot more of this. This is the new style of housing. When you think about downtown Paso or downtown San Luis, there's going to be multiple buildings that do not have any parking, that only have a front door to go into from the street, and they don't have parking lots, and they don't have drive-up access. So this is this is not an apartment building. This is not something you see in a rural area. This is downtown mixed use, and typically it is different. You have a different kind of format going on, and you can't pull up to your unit and unload big things. You walk into a building, and it's more like a hotel or motel type situation.
Okay.
So it is truly mixed use.
Okay, thanks. That's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Mark, you brought up a good point. I forgot to ask if there was any ex parte.
Oh, none for me.
None for me.
Emily?
No, none for me.
Okay, none for me as well. Emily, do you have any questions of staff?
I don't.
Dwayne?
Just that, so since on the commercial area, since it sounds like we've shrunk the square footage. It was around 1,200 before, if I remember. I'm just curious. So is it like just a fair exchange for some exterior area, or did we have to narrow it up to widen? I read that we had to widen the driveway, so it had to come from somewhere.
Yes, that is correct. I don't recall what the original commercial space was, but I believe it's between 70 or 50 and 100 square feet smaller. But that's something that Tom Jess, I'm sure, can for us too.
Okay. No, I just was, and I guess one other thing, I know we got an email concerning the building blocking window view from the apartment next door. But this building starts right at the very sidewalk and then goes back. How does it overlap the apartment buildings in the back very much, or I don't know, that's kind of a odd question.
Site plan that we were looking at earlier. Oh, that one doesn't show it.
I think I might have cut it off on the site plan.
To help answer that question, the building in the front.
It goes back about, can you see me drawing?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or Actually, I'm sorry, that's not a very good. Okay, I'm gonna undo that.
99% of the apartment building faces the driveway and parking area and not the building wall. So it's the thing to know on this building, it's an L-shaped building.
Right.
Adjacent apartment building is towards the rear and faces the parking area and driveway and not a building wall. So it doesn't actually block the sunlight or the window views from the apartment building. So I think it's pretty close to what Mariah's drawing there on the screen is the majority of that apartment building is facing open air. A very
Okay.
corner of the front faces towards that side at the front there.
Yeah, I was looking on the satellite photos and that kind of looked that way to me too, but I just want to, just to bring it up so we could clarify it. So that sounds good.
Yeah, that was one of my questions, whether or not there was any windows that looked into the adjacent property, but you've already answered that. Was there any changes in the square footage or number of bedrooms in the revisions?
No, so the units all stayed the same.
So when we reduced the front area for the commercial space, they would have had to reduce the space on the unit sizes, is that correct?
No, so the commercial space was just on the first floor there.
So they pushed the building back, they just allowed some more area?
Correct, just recessed the commercial storefront area.
Okay, okay, that explains that. I don't have any more questions for staff. Do we want to let the applicant speak or give a presentation?
Yeah, Tom Jess is here, and he does have a presentation, so let me go ahead and pull that up.
Okay, thank you.
I'm just gonna stop sharing for a moment.
Heather, I do have 2 letters at some point that will need to be read into the record as well.
Do you want to give it after the applicant's presentation? Or do you want to give them before so he can address some of those questions in his presentation?
Whatever you'd like.
Since we're just trying to get it loaded, we can go ahead and read those into a record.
Okay, so the first one is from Gina Sirocco. And she says, the new facade is an improvement over the original submission. However, I still have several concerns on the overall project. Number 1, safety. The new setback on the driveway still is a safety hazard. There is still a blind spot. Tenants will have to pull out into the sidewalk to see a turn. I fear that pedestrians will be hit before the driver even sees them. Number 2, safety. No change has been made to upstairs access and height of 2nd floor over the parking ramp. Moving furniture in and out will be difficult. Moving vans will have to park on traffic way. Large items will have to be carried up the parking ramp. Then the switchback stairwell. Number 3, safety. Is there a rear entrance to the retail space for fire exit? This would also be needed to bring in merchandise. Number 4, safety. Have they addressed lighting in the parking lot? Number 5, apartments 205 and 305 appear to actually be 2-bedroom units. The closet and door are not drawn into the corner bedroom, but the reality is the room will be used as a 2nd bedroom and the door may be added during construction. Number 6, with the two-unit apartments, parking is inadequate. 2 more spaces need to be added. Number 7, it will be difficult for the far west parking spots to back out and leave the lot as there is minimal space between the north and south parking. Number 8, trash will still have to be moved to the street for pickup and appears to be not sufficient for the number of residential and retail units. Who will move the containers if there is not on-site management? Has Waste Management reviewed the plans? Number 9, storage has not been added. The balconies will have items stored on them similar to the apartment building next door. The second email is from Tony Boykin, and it says, as a renter whose apartment bedroom and bathroom borders the construction, I am saddened by the fact that a 3-story construction project will block sunlight, airflow, interior privacy, and my ability to view the skyline and night skies. The environmental impact of dust, dirt, equipment, exhausts, and noise associated with construction cannot be adequately mitigated by water dousings and time permits between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. As one of 8 apartments directly affected by the construction, 5 residents, including myself, have disabilities and cannot escape these impacts. Because I am not able to move at this time, your consideration and stringent protective measures are requested. And that's it.
Thank you. I usually hold public comment until after the presentations, but since this is the second draft, I wanted to have the applicant have time to address it in his presentation.
Okay, this is Tom Jess. Are we ready for the presentation or?
Yes. Go
Yeah.
ahead.
Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Well, first off, thank you for having me back to present the project. I appreciate it. The feedback that we received at the first DRC hearing was taken to heart. We've made several changes to the building as a result of that. So the presentation that I have before you, I don't want to duplicate a lot of what Mariah said, but I did think some graphics maybe help explain what those changes were. So we just put together a few graphics to help explain that. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the comment was to, the wood siding on the exterior wasn't very well received, and the request was to change it to stucco and or brick on the exterior. So we did just that. We removed the wood siding, replaced it. I think next slide, please.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, we removed the wood siding, replaced it with brick and stucco. So here's a little juxtaposition of the previous and the proposed. If you can go to the next slide, please. You can see the elevation at the bottom was the previous iteration that you saw, which was a little bit more contemporary, a little bit more simple materials, top to bottom. We did do a banding across the middle there to kind of identify the base, and then we did a large trellis type structure to identify the capital or the cornice. So we revised that now where we've identified the ground floor with a precast concrete wainscot, a brick veneer with some decorative accents at the columns, some recesses there with some decorative brick there. We've also changed the lighting to make it less contemporary and more traditional. And then at the bottom of the windows, we've demarcated the base and then went to the shaft of the building up above. We've also reconfigured the windows some where they were one large window previously that were just molded together. Now we've actually split the windows to get a more traditional proportion, which is a vertical proportion that you would see in most more downtown windows. We've split those and also recessed the windows and the recessed panel between them. So, and then the balconies, we've taken away the large awning, which was an accent feature there when we had the wood siding, and went with a cornice trim across the top, and then a awning over the balconies, which mirrors the balconies itself, brings it up. And one of staff's comments was to increase the depth of this. We have no issue with that. So if you wanted to increase the depth of it, I don't think increasing the width of it's going to add to it, because the width is essentially matched to the balcony below. So I think that there's a pattern there that we wanted to try and keep, but no problem if we wanted to make it deeper and create a deeper shadow line. There was a few other changes to the ground floor, but I'm going to talk about those in the next slides. If you can go to the next slide, please. One of them was to improve the visibility of the cars exiting the driveway. The next slide. So what we did is we shifted the exterior walls back on the sides. We did not increase the width of the driveway at all. The driveway is 18 feet wide and we kept it 18 feet wide. But what we did is we pulled the building back on each side to improve the visibility. If you can go to the next slide, please. So here's a graphic illustration of the improved visibility. You can see on the left is the previous iteration. You can see the trash projected out from the driveway. And please note, the driveway itself is quite a bit further back from the sidewalk. It's 14 feet, I believe. It's a little hard to see. I'm looking at it on my phone. It might be 14 or 16 back from the face of curb, and then it's a full 10 feet back from the curb cut. And then on the right, you can see what we did is we pulled the trash back in towards the building just a couple feet, 3 feet, I think, and then pulled the fire riser closet, created that fire riser closet, and pulled that away from the building. So we increased the visibility of the people exiting the driveway significantly from where it was previously. Next slide, please. Another one was to set back the entry to create an opportunity for outdoor dining. This is at the commercial space. So what we did is we pulled it back 3 feet and widened the recess an additional 10 feet to create an opportunity for some outdoor dining. And there's another diagram that I did here. The next slide. Great. So you can see what we did is we used to have the fire riser closet, which acted as a column visually on the elevation to kind of separate the residential entry and the commercial entry. We've slid that up the page to where the trash is. I showed that in the last one. And then we've also pulled the retail back. So I think we lost about 50 or 60 square feet in the retail, but the only difference is by pulling it back to exchange that, it was a like for like exchange with outdoor space to indoor space. We did not decrease the width or do any other changes to the commercial space other than pulling it back to create that outdoor space, which was requested by the DRC. Next slide, please. And then this is a real simple one. The neighbors that, and just for reference, their lot is roughly 67 feet above our lot, you know, at the street level. So they're up quite a ways. And one of their concerns was these trees that were planted at the back of the lot. So go ahead and next slide. So we went ahead and removed the trees and replaced it with shrubs and bushes as we said we would at the DRC. And you can see that in the next slide, please. You can see on the left, we had the 5 trees that we were proposing to plant back there. That wasn't well received, so we replaced it with landscaping that's lower in height so that it won't have any opportunity to block any of their views. Next slide, please. And I think that kind of wraps up our presentation in terms of responses to the DRC items. There were a few items that were in the letters that I'd go ahead and address right now since those were read in prior to our presentation. The one having to do
Tom?
with, yes.
I think we might, can we check to see if we have any callers on here so we can open up public comment real quick and then you can address those as well?
Oh, perfect.
Okay, thank you.
I believe we do have a couple neighbors that have joined us to speak. I know Greg Ravat is here. Let me see, somebody might have dropped off. But Greg, why don't you start?
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes,
you hear
we
me?
can.
Okay, sir. Back again like a bad penny. I have Gina Sirocco here. She's a neighbor down the street as well that she wrote the letter. But I just really quickly wanted to say that, appreciate the design review process. This is the only chance that we get to see a building in the downtown. There's no planning commission review. So this is really amounts to the only public review that neighbors have. I wish the city would change that and have these projects also go to planning commission so they're a little bit more better advertised. I want to say that the architect really appreciate what Tom's done with this. I really don't have any comments on the exterior of the building. This is kind of what I would have had in mind. I mean, I'm not going to comment on anything specific, whether I would have done this or done that. I just think appreciate it. It does kind of fit in a little bit more into our downtown. My complaint is that the city does not have any design styles. And I think the issue with that I've heard around town for years is, oh, we don't want to make anybody feel unwelcome. Well, we actually would have saved the architect an entire meeting if we would have had design standards that would have got them on target faster. So I want to poke at the city for that, and maybe the DRC can work on improving that. The other comments I have are more generic. Again, I know this project's going to get approved with probably the reduced parking, which I believe it is allowed by the state. I'd really never encountered that because I've done mostly 100% low-income housing. And so the 10%, I wasn't really aware that you could apply those reduced parking standards and concessions to the whole project. So I learned something, but I do want to point out something as a resident and a commercial property owner in downtown. This project has 10% commercial is a percentage to residential. And we are in a commercial district. We do want retail. And I suppose what we're doing is providing more downtown housing and trying to get but this almost is a non-functional commercial space. And I know under the current standards, mixed use, that's allowed. So I'm just gonna point that out to the DRC and anybody else that will listen. I think we need to have ratios between commercial residential for future mixed use projects. I wish staff would work on that. I don't think this is the right direction overall for the downtown. The parking, little background, I own a commercial property in downtown Orcutt, which is a village pedestrian, no parking required. Our biggest problem is residents from adjacent apartments parking on our street parking, and they park there 7 days a week. This is their second car that they don't move. I know that's going to happen here. We have 3 restaurants, a barbershop, a salon, a candle shop, and that's the #1 complaint I get is residents from adjacent apartments parking on the street because there's not enough parking. There never is. So we instituted towing, which is, another mess. And I imagine our downtown's eventually going to be, limited 2-hour parking. So the residents are going to get pushed farther and farther out of the downtown parking area. I also want to comment that, we really don't have the parking that you guys think that we do. I have a commercial building that's very lightly used on El Camino. We're having parking problems already next to Brew Coffee. We have a alley in the back. We're having parking problems down there. You don't think Atascadero has parking problems? I'm going to tell you that we do. We already have 10 cars parked on Traffic Way next to this building that are residents of the apartment because they don't want to park in the back parking lot. They want to park on the street. So they come down the stairs in the morning, and you're going to have to contend with that. The other issue, talked about design styles and design standards. Please work on getting those. I think we're the only city in the county of San Luis Obispo and Santa Barbara County that doesn't have design styles. Please work on that. And then I just wanted to last comment on the visibility. I know this is a problem. I know this is the design proposed. I just want to make a comment. I like the fact that he pulled back the building. I think that's maybe all he can do, but the visibility is not only blocked by the building, it's blocked by the cars on the street. And as we know, there's already a bunch of cars that are parked there. Unless we're going to red curb this, those cars are going to be there. You're not going to be able to see when you pull out. Anyway, that's all I have. I just wanted to thank you guys for giving us the time to comment, and Tom for making the improvements to the building. Very pleased with that.
Well,
Can
yeah.
Gina talk?
Well, I already sent my stuff in. You read them in, and yeah, I would just reiterate that the visibility is not there, and the area that he showed is still being blocked by the cars. And as far as moving in the building, because you won't be able to drive up that ramp, and even if you do drive it up, there's no way to get your vehicle out because it's really congested in the back. I don't know how people are going to move in because there will probably always be cars parked there unless you yellow curb it or white curb it. I don't know, have a time limit on what the parking is there, make it a loading zone or something maybe. And I did have another one. Oh, the trash. I really would like them to look at the trash. I think it's going to be an issue because even if somebody does push the trash out, it's in a designated parking spot, but maybe you could red curb it and have a big trash bin out on the street on trash day. I don't know. But I definitely like the building better now. I agree it fits in better with the neighborhood. And I do have safety concerns for the exiting of that building and whether or not, I don't know that you can put a restaurant in there. There's no exit, and I doubt they have venting going up to make a chimney and a grease trap planned. I don't know, I haven't seen the plans, but I think that's past the preview of the design committee. So it was just concerns. I think it'll be a real retail space that will have difficulty getting items in, and maybe they're not worried about that. I don't know. I just wanted my safety concerns on record, but thank you for updating it and providing us the opportunity to provide feedback to the neighborhood.
Thank you. We have another caller.
It looks like our previous caller that was on has dropped off. So if they come back on, I will let you know, but I think we can move on at this point.
Okay, I'll go ahead and close public comment at this point and bring it back to Tom. If you wanted to talk some more, share with us.
Sure. Yeah, thank you once again. And just a few of the items that I wanted to address that were brought up. One is the loading, unloading, or second exit required from the retail space. This is a very small retail space. I mean, it's 1,100 square feet. There's no building code requirement for a second exit out of a space that small. There's no way we're going to get over 50 people in an occupant load for that space. So the loading would be, you know, like if there's a loading that would have to happen, it would come through the front doors. Everything will come through the front doors. And then as far as whether or not it can accommodate a retail space, I know the caller mentioned something about it, and we do have accommodations for that for both a grease interceptor and an exhaust up to the roof for a future restaurant. That was something that Phil had commented on at the beginning of the submittal process. So we accommodated that and made that work throughout. One thing I did want to comment on, then as far as the trash goes, this is literally the closest we can put the trash on our property to the street. There's really no other option for this. We turned it 90 degrees to the street, so it takes up the minimal amount of frontage along the street. So there's really, and it is sized appropriately for the uses. We are confident in that. And so there's really not another opportunity to put trash anywhere else on this project other than as close as we can to the street. We do have metal gates in front of it so that they block the view of it, and they're sealed doors so that any kind of odors don't penetrate into the building. It's a completely isolated space. And then there was a comment from the neighbor in the apartment building about windows looking into them or us blocking their views. And I think that was addressed by Mariah and Phil already. But I did want to point out that we did take a lot of care and concern when we first laid out the building to make sure that we didn't have any of our windows looking out onto the apartment building or any kind of privacy concerns between the two apartment buildings. So there's none that do that. And then lastly, there was a couple comments about moving in and moving out. One thing I do want to point out is that these are small apartments. They're not going to require a large semi truck or anything like that to move, belongings in and out. We're actually providing the refrigerator as part of the apartment. We're providing the washer and dryer as part of the apartment. So those large appliances aren't going to have to be moved in and out. Those will be fixed and there. And then, as was pointed out by one of the commissioners at the last meeting, a small pickup truck or a small U-Haul, like a 10-foot U-Haul, can in fact make it up. There's plenty of clearance, vertical clearance, and the driveway is plenty wide enough to get up there. You may have to back up, unload, and then pull back down, or as Phil said, you can load from the street and move it up. But the fact that we're providing the washer and dryer and the refrigerator as part of the rental agreement helps eliminate moving some of the larger appliances. But if there's any other questions I can answer, I'm happy to, but I think I addressed the main ones that came up from the letters and the callers.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Phil, I just have a couple questions on the parking. I think that we've got red curb there in that area. Is there going to be red curb around this building?
At the front, I'm not aware of a plan to require right here. We do require that when we do have exiting driveways, there is a distance requirement from that. Do you know what our public works team has said on that, Mariah?
Nick DeBar and Mike Bertuccini both looked at this and they didn't mention anything about a red curb. So we'd have to probably ask specifically.
I know there's one right there, I believe, in front of the distillery, Central Coast.
Yeah, there might be one adjacent to that existing driveway. There is a parking setback limitation for driveways that will require a small red curb. That doesn't mean it's going to eliminate all of the parking in front of this building, but there will be a distance from the edge of the driveway that you cannot park a vehicle so that we can maintain that visibility triangle for vehicles pulling out of the driveway. And that's the standard case with any driveway scenario. I don't have that measurement for you today on what that distance will be, but it's not going to be 100% parking along the front of that building. I can tell you that right now. There will be a visibility triangle that will need to be retained, and it will result in a loss of some parking.
Okay. Does anyone from the DRC have any comments, questions, or things for our applicant or the city?
No, but I was going to comment on the parking thing because that seems to be a big deal. Not the parking, but the access out of this. And I agree that the sight line is important. And I'll refer back to the parking lot that's directly across the street from the Carlton. If you've ever pulled in there in the evening at peak hours when the street's full of parking, there is a site visibility issue. And as from what I can recall, there are no red curbed areas. So cars are parked right up to the entrance to the mouth of that thing. So this condition would be an issue no matter what is built here. If there's going to be parking in the back, there's either going to be part of it red curbed or not. So I don't, if it's part of the code thing, then that's what we need to do. Anyway, that's all I had. It just seems like a moot point. If it's a code thing, it's a code thing.
I guess we'll have staff work with the applicant on the parking. Make sure that that's addressed, which again, if it's code, it's got to be addressed. You're asking the DRC to look at the revised architecture and design and revised landscaping. Mariah, what are you looking for us to address?
Correct. Yeah, so obviously the project has changed pretty drastically from the last time we saw it. So just making sure that these colors and materials are what the DRC was wanting to see. And then we also had those comments about the awnings on the front of the building. Tom mentioned that maybe they wouldn't look great widened, so maybe we would just extend them and make them deeper to keep that symmetry. But just those things as far as the DRC discussion.
DRC, do you want to, Mark, do you want to give your comment and feedback?
And what are we starting on the architectural, the redesign, the
Revised architecture and design.
the aesthetics of it? I think it's much more suited now. I like it. Like I said, I don't really like to criticize somebody's architecture just based on what it is, but I think it fits much more. I like the brickwork. I think it's much more appropriate for the downtown area. So I mean, I don't have any major concerns. There's a comment about a larger awning over these two balconies. I could go either way. I mean, a larger one, just more shade, more protection. Sure, why not? I think proportionality is always important. So I think you can play with it, make it bigger, deeper, taller, however it is, different design. But
Wouldn't do that in DRC.
but anyway, I don't have any major concerns with the design the way it is. I like it. I think it's just a great improvement from the. I mean, I like the other one too. It just didn't fit in the downtown. But I think this is a great improvement for Traffic Way.
Okay, Emily, what is your feedback on architecture and design?
I feel similarly. I liked the previous design. I like this one as well. I think it's it says a task error to me more so than the other one, but I did like both. I trust that staff and Tom Jeff can work together to make a decision on the awnings. I don't have any valuable input there. Yeah, I'm happy with it. I like it, and I think it'll be a nice addition to Traffic Way.
Okay, Dwayne?
Yeah, I concur with everyone there about the design. I think the thing that we can't see that's going to be kind of a nice feature is he said that the windows are recessed, and I think the grayish area also is a recess, creating kind of a linear effect there. I think that's going to really set off the building a lot more than we can see in this rendering. As far as the awning goes, I don't have a problem with them like the way they are. When he said that they're the same depth as the balcony, it seemed that would be a balanced approach, but it's kind of not a big issue, you know.
Okay. I too like the revised aesthetics. It's much more pleasing, and I feel like it fits in with our downtown a lot more. Awning, I'm good with the size as long as it covers the patio or the balcony. If staff recommends or feels that they need it to be a little bit larger to give it a little bit more curb appeal, I'm good either way. I feel you guys can work with the applicant on that part. I did want to say thanks, Tom, for taking our recommendations and putting the extra time and effort in and making these changes. I do also appreciate you taking the time to address our community's questions. With that, I'd say that we've already, does staff feel we addressed revised architecture and design?
There's one comment a member of our public just brought up again that they want the DRC to address,
Okay.
and that is the interior configuration of the two larger units. And there's a concern there about those being converted into 2-bedroom units, which could impact the parking on the property. And so I just would ask the DRC to look at that issue and determine if that.
Did we determine that they were just 1-bedroom units and this is an extra storage space, or what is that additional space for, Thomas?
Do we have a site, do we have a floor plan we can put up at all, Tom or Mariah, on the screen?
If I look at the second floor plan, it looks like it, what is it in unit 204 and unit 205?
Yeah.
It's 205 and 305, I believe.
Oh,
Correct.
205 and 305. Okay.
So, yeah, we did talk about this at the last hearing, and what we discussed and what the vision is there is that we did have some extra space there. We don't have the ability to park any additional parking spaces, so we couldn't make it another bedroom. But with the number of people working from home now, I know I have 2 people at my house working from home. Having a separate little office space or a place that could be a breakout space was a really valuable asset. So what we did is we just created a little bit of privacy from the living room with a partial length wall, but the rest of the wall's open there, and that becomes basically an opportunity for someone to work from home at that location.
And that's nothing that a door can be put on? Is the opening larger than a door?
It's much larger than a door.
And I want to comment on that because I know the concern is, okay, it could be a bedroom, which means it could cause, like Phil said, it could potentially cause parking issues. Well, the fact is we've got 10 units and 10 parking spaces, and the likelihood of 2 people living in a 1-bedroom and each having a car might be pretty high. So you got a potential for 20 parking space issues. But so the question that I have is, if you have 10 parking spaces for these 10 units, Phil, how can it be enforced that residents here cannot park on the street? How is that going to be handled? I mean, because I see a parking issue no matter whether there's these extra bedrooms or not.
there may be a parking issue, and we can't push that onto this project to be responsible for that under the purview of design review. That's a challenge.
Okay.
So the other thing is, Nick DeBar just dropped in here. He wanted to chime in on the street parking issue and note that there won't be red carving required on this project, that all the parking will be, there will be 2 parking spaces available out front in the public right of way. But parking's a challenge. All we can do is require them to park it per code. And this is what our code allows, given the state mandate on top of that. So it puts us in a tricky situation. This may result in parking impacts in our downtown. Does that mean there's something we can do about that now? It doesn't. It probably means we need to look at the bigger picture And that's what we are doing as a city when we talk about our downtown enhancement plan and when we talk about enhancing spaces and creating more parking and preserving parking that we have. Right now, certain parts of our downtown do have a shortage. And I think Greg Ravat mentioned the issues we're having in our alley right now, the issues we're having in El Camino right now. And those are a few priorities that we're gonna have to work on as a community to ensure that that parking is being preserved for the right users. Right now, we have some violations that need to be fixed. There's some problems over there that need to be corrected. This part of the downtown don't necessarily have a parking issue yet. We'll have to wait and see what happens with that particular issue. One thing that we could do on this project that might help alleviate our concern is make sure that we record a covenant on this property to ensure that all of these units remain as one-bedroom units and are occupied as one-bedroom units, and that those spaces need to be preserved as part of that unit and modified to meet that standard, so that we don't get, 10 years down the line, if someone makes a bedroom out of it and we have a parking problem, that we can go back to say that, hey, this is what we approved. We approved 10 one-bedroom units. They must be utilized that way. So maybe that's a possibility on this to allow us to feel more comfortable on that.
Isn't one, because it's low income, isn't that one also gonna already have a deed restriction?
Yes, there will be that on that as well from that angle, from in terms of price.
I think that to maintain the integrity of how this project was presented, that we need to make sure that it stays a one unit. However, city staff needs to do that.
Okay. And just to chime in here as the applicant, we have no objection to that. We've submitted it as 10 one-bedroom units. That's what's even approved, is 10 one-bedroom units. And if there was some additional language in a condition that needed to be added to ensure that it stays 10 one-bedroom units, we have no issue with that at all. We're submitting what we're planning on building. So if there's something that can be added to the language, we have no objection.
I think that addresses some of the community's concern. Does DRC members have anything additional to add?
Nope.
No?
Emily?
No, no, thank you.
Okay. Excuse me. Now we can go on to the revised landscaping. Mark, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any comments. I think landscaping is probably the least of the concerns. No, I think city staff can work well with the applicant on this, and whatever, the street trees, there's requirements for that. If the landscaping is going to make a different, this new revision is going to keep the neighbors happy and city staff is okay with that, then, and it complies with the requirements, then I'm okay with it. It makes me no never mind.
Dwayne?
Yeah, I think it works fine. Yeah.
Emily?
I agree, and I appreciate the applicant making the revision as requested by the neighbor. I think that was a good move, and I think the landscape is fitting this type of project.
I will agree with my colleagues that I think landscaping's been addressed, and that I do appreciate you taking the extra time to revise your drawings. Does staff have anything additional on this project?
Nope, you cover. Oh, sorry, Phil. I was just gonna say, no, I don't have anything else. You covered the design and landscaping, and I've got it all down. So nothing else, staff.
And I'd just like to add as staff, just a note, regardless of the action that the DRC takes today, this action is actually appealable to the Planning Commission. This could be sent to the Planning Commission upon appeal within 14 days of today's action. I think there was a comment brought up about review levels for these types of projects. And that's going to be a challenge in the future. In fact, the state is mandating that we require a lot more by right larger residential projects, a lot more by right larger mixed use projects without having that discretionary review. So from a state level, we're being forced as a local jurisdiction to streamline review. And that's a bigger topic that we're going to have to talk about. It's a bigger topic that's going into our housing element right now of our general plan as it heads into its final draft. And it's something the state is mandating that we incorporate into all of our regulations. So design review may be one of the last things that we have to hang on to in terms of guiding projects and the way they appear. But we are working on design standards, objective design standards. And I think the comment is really well taken about having design standards for our downtown zone at a minimum. And it's something that we hope to talk further about with our city council and with our team in the future. So just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you for addressing that, Phil. I knew in prior DRC meetings and additional council meetings and planning commission meetings, we too are trying to streamline our vision for our community. And it's hard to do, to have consistency, but we are in the works with trying to map that out a little bit more with input from our community and from all of us that are involved in these conversations on a regular basis. So we do appreciate the public's input and staff's time and the applicants. So thank you for presenting today.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I'll pull out my agenda list here. Does committee members have any comments or reports?
Nope. Nope.
Director's report?
All right, what's coming down the pipeline for design review committee soon? I always forget to bring my calendar with me about what is coming up next. Annette, are you there?
I am, and our next meeting would be October 28th, but last I checked, there were no items ready for that agenda.
Okay, well, we'll see what comes up then, what's going to be available. There are several projects that are gelling in the process, but otherwise there's a lot that's going into construction too. So we're definitely keeping busy, but I'm sure we'll have something to share with you soon. One of the bigger ones that we are working on getting to move forward is the Dove Creek project for the 5-acre vacant lot at Dove Creek, which is at the corner of El Camino Real and Santa Barbara. And that will be coming along to look at a really exciting project there that's going to have some housing, some commercial, some tourist serving uses, and a really neat development for that site. So we're excited about that one. Other than that, if you have any questions about development activities happening around the community and other planning activities, I'm happy to answer your questions.
Is Barrel Creek coming to DRC?
Barrel Creek will come to DRC at some point. We don't have an official application from them yet. We're waiting for that. They are currently working on an application. They're currently working on a traffic analysis. And once they submit, we'll bring that to Design Review Committee and on through the chain of command. But at this point, we don't actually have an official application from them to proceed with.
Okay. And then I've been having people in the community asking me of status on Kmart. Do we have any potential applicants or anything going in there that you know of?
We don't, unfortunately. I just reached out to the owner about a week ago on that, and there's nothing brewing at the moment, unfortunately. He had a couple tenants lined up, then COVID happened. Things are sort of delayed. He is working with some potential things to happen out there, but unfortunately, he's not in a significant rush because he is getting paid by Kmart for the lease of that large space, and there is 4 more years left on that lease. And he's willing to break that with the right tenant and make it happen. He does want to redevelop that site. So we're hoping to encourage that to happen. At this point, there's nothing in the works for that site though, as of today.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add or ask?
Nope.
All right. I guess meeting is adjourned.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Oh.